ITrack Chromium. Right. Yeah, I'm one of the developers who works on ITrack Chromium, and today we're going to be talking about the new features added to the dashboard in Chromium. So starting out on just the home screen, I have created a webinar user where basically all they can do is see the dashboard. So we'll just open it up, and we're greeted with the familiar screen that I showed off in our July webinar over the dashboard. We have our simple just overview, gives us a quick brief glance at our sales for the past 3 periods, which by default is past 3 years. A map of our sales by customer zip code over the past year. We have sales by customer, both over time and just total numbers. Also by part type. You can also see a more visual representation here. And then kind of the same deal with salesperson. We have our overtime chart, our table, column chart that breaks it down a little bit more, and this tree map that you can zoom in and see more. And so we've all seen all this before if you've watched the previous webinar or played with Chromium a little bit in the dashboard screen. But today what we're going to talk about is some of the new features primarily, which primarily includes the ability to configure and share new dashboards, as well as a couple smaller features, more advanced permissions to control access to the dashboard, as well as creating new reports, configure existing reports, and then customizing the charts in the reports. But before we dive into that, there are a couple small features that are on the dashboard as it stands now. So previously, these tree maps, the representations of your sales in blocks, didn't really have useful tooltips. We have added, however, that it will show you the sales if you hover over them. This applies both to the part type and salesperson, as well as the one that just applies to the part type. And then on all of our charts with legends, we added the ability to hide a bar or a line, or basically just a series of data by clicking on it in the legend. So if over here, I wanted to hide the entry for support, which is just some data I put in June that doesn't really mean anything in this example database, click on it and it disappears. And then I can click on it again and it comes back. And so that would apply over here as well. If I didn't really care about like the other part types, it would just make the data look, it would just exclude those from the chart, make the data look a little bit more readable. Same with if I wanted to just click out some of the smaller categories and really only focus on what I want to see at that given time. But, all right. Yeah, but that is basically the 2 new features that are just on the dashboard screen. If we want to go into how to configure our dashboards though, we can see that there's this configure report button that is grayed out though, because I do not have permission. And so same with over here. But if I log out and log in as a user that does have the permission, okay, one moment. Okay, here we are. We do have the permission. We can see I can configure the report. So I can either click the configure report button, or I can show you the permission as well. There are basically 3 permissions gating the use of the dashboard. So by default, everyone should have the dashboard open and the dashboard edit own reports permission, which basically means you can create your reports and you can also view them. And then there is also the edit all reports button, which basically means you will be able to edit other people's reports as well as the default reports that we looked at earlier. And so then let's just head back over to the dashboard report configuration tab. This has been in Chromium for a little bit, but we haven't done a webinar over it yet, so I figured let's show it off. And so as we can see here, because I can edit all of the reports, we can edit the default reports, but just for the sake of it, let's go ahead and create a new report. Let's just call it the webinar report. All right. And so as we can see, the report is created by support, which is the user I'm logged into currently. And by default, it does not have any charts on it, and it's just shared with everyone. And the parameter, the date range, just defaults to this year. So let's say we just wanted to see, like, just have all of the tables. So let's just click on the tables. And then as we can see, they're checked off as in the report. But I don't know, we want salesperson to be up top. So I just click the little arrow it up, salesperson, then let's do customer next, and then part type. And then if we click this open button over here, it takes us directly to that report, to the webinar report, instead of having to click on the sidebar and then click into it. So we can see we have all of our tables here, but it's a little bit annoying that we have to scroll through the whole list, right? So let's go back to configure report. And then for sales by customer, let's configure the chart. And so here we can see a preview of the chart as we're configuring it. So we can change it to be the chart width and height if we wanted to, but I like it the way it is right now. But we can also enable a filter. So if I wanted to filter the chart, so if I wanted to see, I don't know, I want to see this customer, we can do that. And the same thing will apply to the dashboard. Let's say we want it to have it be paged. So let's do about 9 per page. Let's save that. And then let's go back to the dashboard. So as we can, one moment. Oh, that's embarrassing. Well, it appears that on my developer environment, it's not quite working quite right. So let's move on. All right. So if we wanted to do the same thing for our part type, sales by part type over time chart, we can open that up. And then we have quite a bit more options in this one. We can also configure the margins, because depending on who you are, you might not have as many entries in the part type, or you may have more. Or your names are going to be longer. And so if you wanted to change the legend font size, the legend position, so if we wanted this to be on the top, if we just like that look better, we wanted to have a wider view, we could move the legend up top, change the right margin down to be the same as the left margin. And we can see our data over a wider period of time, and we can save it. We can reset to default if we don't like it. So if we reset it to default, it'll tell us, it'll reset all of the properties and then save it over. Do we want to continue? So let's say yes. So that's how that works. And then some charts like the tree map, they have fewer options, just because these charts just don't have as many options to configure. But the majority of the charts, such as like the line charts, the area charts, those you can configure the margins and all of that stuff, as well as the legend. The tables, you can configure all of the height, the width, the rows, and all of that. And then if we wanted to also change who it's shared with, so I can say we only want to share it with the webinar user. We can go and then open it. We can see that we can still see it because we're the owner of it. But if I switch over to the webinar user, we can also now see this report. But since we are not the owner of the report and we did not create the report, we cannot configure it. All right, so let's just switch back over. Yeah, so let's switch back over, and then what we see is we see our report. We can go back to configuring it. And let's say, it's not the webinar report. Webinars, The webinar isn't what this is really about. This is the everything report. And so we can rename it and see it's renamed. And we can also change the parameters as well. So if we want it to be everything, but for some reason everything only counts for last year, we can change it to be last year. And then when we move over to the dashboard, defaults to the previous year. And then the same thing applies for any other date range as well. So now that we've basically showed all of the features, I'll ask if anybody has any questions over anything or how that works. All right. Well, so I guess the final feature we can show off is the ability to irrevocably destroy all of the work we have done so far by deleting the report. And so once again, with all the other configuration things, you can only do it if you have the edit permission. So you either created it or you have permission to edit everything. So let's just go ahead and delete it. And that will basically be all we have to show today. So I believe we have a poll to show you all. Oh, it appears we do. How do we? Oh yeah. So if you want to request new charts, new features, stuff like that, go ahead and talk to iSoft support. They can help you out. Forward it on to us developers. And then, yeah, so that's basically it we have today. And then, yeah, contact iSoft support if you got any more questions after this. And I believe we have a poll we will launch as well. So go ahead and answer that, and I'll stick around for a couple more minutes.